Hey everybody, and welcome back to my top 100 board games of all time. Today I'll be continuing the series with games 90 through 81. I've got some new games here as well as some returns. But before I get started on the games, I want to give a shout out to the show's sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer. And if you use the link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. Also, be sure to check out my new game, Thalamus, and if you send me an email, you can secure yourself a copy. But let's get started on the video. At number 90, I have Praga Caporegni. So this is actually one of the big fallers from last year, falling from number 11. So quite a drastic fall there. Now, of course, this is still my top 100 games. I still love this one. But I suppose the main reason for it falling was I kind of feel like the bottom portion of the board is somewhat surplus to requirements, and I didn't really find many people kind of interacting with that area control part. But the rest of it, I absolutely adore. I love the player boards, and the combo-rific nature of the game as one thing will hit another thing, and that domino effect really goes off, and you can pull off these massive and impressive combos. Kind of all the hallmarks of a good Euro that I have here. Again, that resource management, those engine building upgrades, going along tracks, everything I love really, and I love the end game scoring as well as the in game scoring as well. So one of Suki's best games. Again, sadly the only reason it fell was because I think it could have been a little bit more interesting on the bottom half, but still one of the most satisfying games that I've ever played, and I love almost everything about it. So that is Praga Caporegni at number 90. At number 89, I have The Lost Code. So this one is pretty much tracking to be my favourite deduction game of all time. As simple as it gets, as you are displaying some numbers that will be facing away from you so that the other players can see them, and of course you're doing the same, or they're doing the same to you, and you're trying to work out what your numbers are by rolling dice and trying to kind of give guesstimations on what you think the sum of those particular tokens could be, using these really cool dials where you are kind of using them, and the dials come with different denominations on them or different parameters on them. So the wider guess you take means that you'll get fewer points if you're in that parameter, or you could be very specific by using, of course, deduction skills. And if you are exactly spot on what you guess, then you'll get a much better return in points. Extremely elegant mechanically, some kind of really brain-racking deduction that you need to do here. But it flows so nicely, it does not outstay its welcome at all, and it manages to separate itself from the pack of so many other kind of, those sleuth variants, those Cluedo variants of deduction games. This one just approaches that genre from a different angle, which I appreciate that much more. So this one, I think, has huge potential to climb up, and keep an eye on this one because I think maybe next year it could even breach the top half of the list. It is that good of a game. So that is The Lost Code at number 89. At number 88, I have The Resistance Avalon. So by far my favourite social deduction game, this kind of Arthurian legend game of intrigue, as you have players who are loyal to Arthur, and then you of course have the minions of Mordred who are trying to sabotage the mission. As you'd expect, this game is about voting who's on the team. Within that team you could have traitors who are trying to, again, crash the mission, but those traitors can kind of try and gain people's trust by putting in passes in these missions, and hopefully secure themselves on future teams, which they can then try to sabotage and pin on other people. And what I love most about this game is the interaction between the roles, where everybody has just that small piece of the puzzle. Merlin knows who all the bad guys are, but the bad guys, if he's too obvious with the bad guys, then they might guess who he is and assassinate him, and so on. So there's all these interacting mechanisms where everybody can try and deceive people or gain the trust of the right people. Really fun. Some of the best kind of games nights experiences I've ever had are playing The Resistance Avalon, but sadly it does require higher player counts, so I don't get to play it as much as I would like. But still, the best one by far, that is The Resistance Avalon at number 88. At number 87, I have District Noir, almost a micro game here, as you are managing a very small hand of cards, and you have one of two choices to make, essentially. You can either play a card in this communal row between you and your opponent. Now, I should say this is only a two-player game, or you can take the last 5 played cards in that row. And these cards come with different information on them. Some of them are just pure points, or if you have the majority of those particular suits, you'll score the points on them. Some of them are plus points, some of them are negative points, and you even have these kind of city buildings cards where if you collect all 3 of them, you'll instantly win the game. This is a game about kind of holding your nerve, trying to mislead your opponents at times. Obviously not give your opponent too good of an opportunity to take the best cards, but at the same time, you don't want to give them too bad of an opportunity because they're just not going to go, and they're going to kind of wean the good cards out of your hand and then choose to act and take the cards. So some good kind of cerebral back and forth here. Very fast, lovely looking game, and it's really earned its place in my top tier of 2-player only games, and it's so impressive considering how few components and how few rules there are in this one. A lovely game. That is District Noir at number 87. At number 86, I have another 2-player game with Traambahn. So this is a criminally underrated game as you are trying to create runs of cards of the same colour type, going from kind of ascending order essentially. It works a little bit like Lost Cities, but I must admit I do prefer Traambahn to Lost Cities, even though that is a game I really like in its own right. But this one, I do like the multi-use card system, as you can either play them as these kind of customers, and if you ever get 4 of the same colour, then all of the cards amongst both players are going to score of that colour. So you're trying to, again, create these runs of particular colours. The longer the runs are, the more points you'll get. And you'll also have a multiplier, as in the train station, that it assigns to. And you, again, if you are running away with a particular colour, you want to be making sure that that colour scores as often as possible, because you're going to be getting a net gain above your opponent. But of course your opponent is trying to do the same thing, so you might want to dabble in all of the colours available. And I really do love how in this game the players really dictate the scoring, because there's not like an amount of fixed rounds or anything like that. I think it's 10 scorings, which again are dictated by the players, and then it's the game's end. A very tight money management system. Again, that multi-use card system is fantastic. And again, it hits all those checkboxes what I want with a tense but enjoyable 2-player only game. So that is Traambahn at number 86. At number 85, I have Yinch. So this is from the JIP series of abstract strategy games that I've really been diving into this year. This one is more widely known to be one of the best ones, and I of course have to agree with that, considering it's burst straight onto the scene into my top 100. Beautifully elegant game, as you are moving these discs of your colour over these little tokens, and whenever you move over a token going along one of these lines, then those discs will flip over to the opposite side. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to create 5 in a row of your colour. If you do that, you're going to be one step closer to winning the game, because you need to do it, I think it's 3 times. But every time you complete one of those runs, you remove one of your rings from the board. So this game has one of the best kind of passive catch-up mechanisms that I've ever seen, because again, if you pull ahead, you're going to have fewer rings on the board, meaning that your opponent has that slight advantage to try and make up that ground. Some really cool moves you can do here by trying to block people off certain runs and so on. And mechanically, I cannot criticize this game at all, but with most abstract strategy games, I need to be in the right headspace to play it, but there's no critiquing how good this game is in terms of its richness, its elegance and simplicity. So that is Yinch at number 85. At number 84, I have Harmonies, so a new game from 2024 here. And this one, there's a lot of other games out there that do similar things, but I think Harmonies takes the best parts from all of them and puts it in such a nice package. So this one, you are essentially drafting sets of 3 tokens, and then you're populating your little habitat basically. These tokens come with different terrain types. You've got like your trees, you've got your bushes and your houses and so on. And what you're trying to do is you are trying to build them up in certain formations to not only score points based on, again, building houses or building the longest river and so on, but you're also trying to score these gold cards to try and fit the habitat of these animals. And the more times you do that, the more points you'll start to get. But I also love how these cards kind of like merge with each other, so they can bleed in. Like the goals of each of the cards can bleed into one another, so that you can aim towards several goals at the same time. So I really love that. It's a real kind of efficiency puzzle to try and place things as optimally as possible. Looks lovely, very tactile, super fast, and still a good head scratcher. So yeah, this one doing so well, and rightly so. I think it really does deserve its place amongst the best of the best games, which is great to say when it's a 2024 release. So that is Harmonies at number 84. At number 83, I have Arcadia, which is a game that has somewhat faded into obscurity, which is strange to say considering this is a Rudiger Dawn design, who's made so many of the most popular games. This one is a polyomino game, and it was kind of a polyomino game before polyominoes were cool. It's a weird blend of abstract with some commodity speculation, as you are playing these cards to place these particular tiles on this communal board, and then you're basically trying to surround these existing buildings in order to collect these tokens, and then cashing in these tokens at the right times based on this changing market. So basically at the middle of the board, you have these buildings which all are associated to a different coin type. And as you take actions, that market is going to change. Sometimes the gold could be worth more, sometimes the silver, then the bronze, and so on. And it's all about trying to strike it when that value is at its highest. If you know that your opponent is, say, really running away with gold tokens, you might want to try and tank the value of that gold as quickly as you can. So good back and forth, some good interaction here. I love how dynamic the board state is. I love the limited resources you have in terms of placing these little people on the board to try and surround particular spots. And yeah, it's a real kind of puzzly game with some good interaction, and that hybrid of polyominoes with that commodity speculation works surprisingly well. So that is Arcadia. Again, very unfortunate how obscure this game is now, but I would definitely recommend giving it a go if you can find it out there. At number 82, I have Manhattan, which is one of the simplest area control games that I've played, yet still one of the best. So this one, you have this big board which comes with, I believe, 5 different cities, which are basically like a little grid. All you're going to do on your turn is you're going to play a card which will show whereabouts in these cities you can place one of your buildings. Now, scoring wise, all you're trying to do is you are trying to have the majority of your buildings in each of these cities, score points based on all of your buildings, and also score points based on who has the tallest building on the entire board. But the twist about this game is that if somebody is on a spot where you're going to build a building, you can actually just swallow them up and just build your building directly on top of theirs, as long as you have the kind of stories of building, the stories on those buildings equal or more to that player. So although it's highly competitive and quite cutthroat and take that at times, you can't just do whatever you want, because you do need to have that right ratio. So it's not like you can just completely piggyback off someone else's effort. You at least need to butt heads with them. And I really do like that extra touch just to make it more balanced. But still, beautifully weighted. Again, so easy to dive into. You can teach this game in around 5 minutes. But still some great back and forth, some real good laugh out loud moments. And this game managed to do a great job of facilitating a competitive, pretty vicious game, but it manages to stay so light-hearted because of how easy those rules are. So that is Manhattan at number 82. And finally, at number 81, I have Trismegistus, the Ultimate Formula. So by far the most complex and involved of the T-series of games by Daniele Tascini. You know, not many people do dice-driven Euros quite like Tascini. But this one is definitely an ambitious project, as you are drafting dice, taking several things into consideration: the colour of the die, the symbol of the die, how many dice are in the pool. All of this is super pertinent as you are trying to very carefully manipulate your board state, getting resources, transmuting them into different resources, different elements, trying to complete contracts, building up an engine to make you more efficient, trying to get the most potency out of every single action you take here, because you only get a few actions, and I do like the way that you can piggyback off other players' actions by collecting these additional tokens. So lots going on here, more than I can summarize in a quick video like this. But if you want a dice-driven game with tons to mull over, really carefully strategize about what you want to do, planning to the nth degree, it doesn't really get much better than Trismegistus. Not the easiest game to get into because of some of the symbology, terminology, and so on. But I do think it's slightly overstated about how complex this game is. It's not that bad if you play a lot of Euros, maybe just a step above some of the other ones you play. But still, a fantastic game, and I'm really excited to see what they do with the second edition of this one. If they can just trim off a little bit of the fat to make it a bit more accessible and easier to table, this game could really skyrocket, because again, the core of the game, the foundation, is already there and it is still fantastic, but it could do with a little bit of streamlining. So that is Trismegistus at number 81. So there we have it, that concludes the video. Hopefully you have enjoyed it. If you have, please be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel, and check out my other content too. And for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye bye.